All right, good evening. This is Liz Busquets, and today is June 4th, 2020. We're having this special teleconference tonight so that we can take care of some of the items that we would have taken care of during the spring meeting that was canceled due to COVID-19. If this is the first time you've ever heard or listen to our recordings, the way we do this is that we go down the agenda item by item, we discuss them, and then if there is a motion to be made, it is made, we discuss it, and then we vote. So the first set of items that we have to do with the meeting with Ray Fryer, who is a business manager. So I guess the first item here is the status of the samples at Therion.
Yes, with COVID-19, things have definitely, unfortunately, been put on the back burner as far as moving forward with all of this. I'm waiting for the list of those 10 samples that we're interested in sending over to paw print genetics for review, because that'll tell us a lot as far as things moving forward with those samples. From the way they have shown that everything is currently packaged and everything on the blood samples, because we've got the blood cards already there at the office.
Right.
I do not see how it is a feasible situation to have refrigerators sent down here as far as cost effectiveness. So that then entails us having to purchase new refrigerators that are in the office for the office and have them start packaging these up in boxes to be sent down for us to offload and organize in those refrigerators to move forward with the storage of those. Once again, I don't know if everything is on hold until the samples are at paw prints and they have a chance to run things and we say yes, they are viable, if we're wanting to wait on that, or if we're just wanting to move forward with, let's get these samples to the office and then we'll go from there as far as disposal if necessary.
Well, the initial intention was to have them tested, have some tested, and see if they were viable, and then make a decision, because obviously if they come back that they're not viable, it's not even worth thinking about shipping them.
Correct.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to go around to see if the board is still, if all directors are still thinking that way. But, right now the problem is that this has taken so long to get some samples to paw prints that it's putting us against the wall, basically. I mean, Therion is gone on September 1st. And so, we don't have a lot of time. If we decided to ship them back to the office at great cost, I'm sure it will be. I mean, just to be transparent with the membership and the members who are listening to this, Therion wants $50 an hour for packaging and going through the samples and all that, plus the shipping. Those samples would not apparently be refrigerated. They just want to pack them in boxes and send them. So, yeah, that's the situation that we have right now. We are running out of time, I think. And I don't know, how helpful or how cooperative Therion is going to be after August. So, yeah, we're in a bit of a pickle, I will say. So anyway, I'm going to go around and let's see what the directors have to say. Denise?
Hi, Ray. I would tend to think that we need to stay on track with what we'd already discussed, and that was sending those samples to paw print and having them check them for viability. And if they're not viable, then the rest of the samples can stay with Therion, because there's no reason to send non-viable samples, especially if he doesn't want to refrigerate them. And here it is. I don't know how it is at your place, but it's 103 here today. So, you know, the temperature in the summer to ship that stuff without refrigeration would further do damage if they're viable even still. So that would be my thing, is just send the samples that we agreed to send to paw prints. I'm sure that they'll check them right away. We'll probably have a results back within a week, and we'll know more at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Gina?
Hi. I agree. We can't make a decision until paw print decides if they're viable or not. If they're not, then does ASCA own that DNA, or do the actual people that submit it own it? Anyway, if it's not viable, then yeah, we can just dispose of it. As far as moving the refrigerators, I did a lot of checking on that, and if you can get it done, it's going to be really expensive. And then the carrier's liability is anywhere from 10 cents a pound to 50 cents a pound if there's any damage. So I don't think it's going to be viable for us to try to move the refrigeration units, no matter how the samples, if they're good. So we would probably have to look into buying new refrigeration units. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Jan?
I like the idea of paw prints actually being able to test and see those samples. So I would like to go forward with our original plan.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Jean?
I support going with our original plan, but I do have a question for Ray. Out of all of the list of samples that we asked Therion to look for, that would have blood tubes on file, how many actually had blood tubes on file? Do you know?
Out of that original sample, there was one.
Yeah, there was one. And so that's why I sent that email after we found out to the board. And then we decided, well, we're just going to go ahead, instead of doing it this way, we're just going to pick at random. Okay. Yeah, some samples from, say, from the beginning, from 3 periods of time at least. Right. So that we can see, we can compare, how those older samples are doing in relationship to the newer samples that are stored there. But so far, I mean, we have not gotten, I mean, I guess the plan has been for Therion to go ahead and pick those samples, and so that's where we're waiting.
I sent them another list of samples to verify if they had tubes on, and that's where we're currently waiting at.
Okay, good.
And how long ago was that?
2 weeks ago.
Okay, and you haven't had any movement on that at all?
No.
Because, as you said, we have a deadline of September 1st, so we need to get those samples over to paw print as soon as possible to see if it's, feasible or financially worthwhile to move anything. But yeah, as far as the fridges are concerned, I, from the very beginning, said we just need to tell them to keep them or do something with them. But it's not cost effective to move refrigerators for sure. So, yeah. And I guess if Therion doesn't reply soon about those 10 that you, or however many you sent back, then maybe we have David contact them and say, we need this sent to paw print soon because we're coming up on a deadline. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jean. Judy?
Yeah, I agree pretty much with what everybody said. It's imperative that we get those samples to paw prints. And if that means getting our attorney involved, then that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Rachel?
The same. Once again, we see Therion's lack of communication in their unbusinesslike manner. You know, here we're trying to get to the truth of the matter regarding the samples, and they can't even help us with that. They are useless, in my opinion. So probably a letter from David would help. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Rick?
I agree with everybody else. As Rachel said, useless. That's why we have moved away from them. I mean, they have no incentive to help us move forward. So I don't see them, I really don't see them with legal counsel even making a move right now. So September 1st, we're done with them, and we're just going to have to move forward. Hopefully they'll send them, but my opinion is I don't think they will. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Warren?
So I consider the DNA of the breed to be in some sense, sort of our most valuable possession. We want to do everything we possibly can. That said, clearly the history with Therion is not something that's probably going to work out. I do not support any action until we can get a test sample from them to prove there's value to any future action. It sounds like what folks have said is a small sample we'd like to have pulled. I think that sounds like a very prudent way to move forward first, and then decide where to move from there.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Okay, guys, Jan is saying that there's a lot of echo on this. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this.
No echo here.
No echo
Liz,
here either.
this is Rachel. She says it's me, but I've deleted everything that I can, and I don't hear an echo anywhere.
Well, I don't hear an echo either, so I don't know.
Maybe she should try calling back in.
I'll call in.
Yes, thanks.
Well, if everybody is on, if everyone mutes themselves when they're not speaking, that's supposed to help the echo.
But Jan is signed in twice, according to GoToMeeting on my screen on the computer. She's actually signed in twice. So that could be why
that
there's
will cause an
echo.
I missed that part. I'll fix it.
I don't know. I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I think that's absolutely it, and we have several unidentified callers that could also be Jan.
No, I
I'm
think
not
that
on the
one is
phone.
Ray, and yeah.
Well, one is Ray. I'm looking at 6 unidentified callers, so one is Ray.
One Jean, because I can't, my app doesn't work, so I just.
Jean, it appears you're caller number 2. One of the caller number 2s, great.
Oh, nice.
We got 4 others. Anybody else want to chime in that they really exist?
I think Denise has to be one.
And Rick Gann's one.
Yeah, and
We've all
Rick.
spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the caller 4s I've never seen light up, so I don't know who that is.
Yeah, it may be David.
I was going to say, is David here?
No, he
I'm
has
on.
a real name.
Yeah,
I see
I'm
David's name on it, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
He lights up when he talks. Well, there's some mystery people who may or may not be connected.
Yeah. All right. So I guess there's Jan again, but there's still 2 Jans. Okay, I'm gonna.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. What?
I was just asking if we need a motion to do anything, or if we're just discussing this, or where we are on this topic.
We already had motions due about all this whole thing. So it's just a matter of getting it moving forward, and it was an opportunity for Ray to report on it. So I guess we're gonna, I guess my feeling is we should give it until next week and see if there is anything back from Therion. And if there is nothing, say by Tuesday or Wednesday, then maybe we could ask David to write them an email or something.
Could we have Ray just like send him a little note tomorrow, like, hey, I sent you this,
Sure.
did you get it? Just, you know, hey, see if we get any reply.
Absolutely, I can.
All right.
And then if you ignore that, then David.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
But I should be getting another plate from them tomorrow. I'm hoping as well.
Oh, okay.
Ray, why don't you list me as a CC on the email?
Okay.
And he had indicated to me if there was ever any misunderstanding or whatever to let him know. So I don't think he would take it as out of line or unduly threatening or anything for me to give him a call if he doesn't respond to your message.
Okay.
All right. So that's the first item. So the second item has to do with the sanctioning that we are doing, special sanctioning considerations that we have been doing for COVID-19. And so I think that we need Ray's input on this and see how it's going and whether there is a way that we can make the process either clearer or whatever. So, Ray?
Well, up until the last week, everything was moving forward well with clubs. We were working with them as closely as possible for clubs that had turned in sanction paperwork for shows that they had to reschedule. Everything was going along smooth. And then a club decided that they wanted to tag on to something when they hadn't turned in any paperwork, and that's what started the big hoopla as far as everything goes. And since the email went out, we've had 2 more clubs jump in with shows like 3 weeks out that are wanting to get stuff sanctioned. So that's our current status on it.
Okay, a clarification, Ray. These new ones that have come in, are these new shows or are these like postponements or what were they?
I truthfully don't know on that one.
Okay. Okay. So what realistically, what is the shortest time that the office can try to do this sanctioning? In other words, how far ahead, would it be a month? I know that we have, the set guidelines of 60 days. We did that last year, but obviously we're trying to be more understanding because of the circumstances. But I also want to make sure that the office is, being able to do the work, at the pace that we have. So is 3 weeks too short of a time?
Well, I mean, we can sanction stuff as long as all of the information is provided properly, and we don't have to go back and forth for 2 weeks to get a flyer corrected. We can get things sanctioned in a fairly quick manner. The situation that I don't want to see happen, though, is for certain clubs out there will take advantage of it as much as possible. That way, them and only their friends are the ones that enter the thing, because they'll wait. If we give them 2 weeks to sanction a show, they'll wait that 2 weeks. So only their friends and whatnot know about it. And that's the piece that I think is equal of importance as what it is for the office to have time to get the paperwork pulled together and mailed out to them. That clubs aren't trying to go backdoor on some stuff. So I would say minimum of 30 days if we don't just go straight back to the current rules and procedures that are set in place.
Right. Okay. So you're saying 30 days should be the COVID-19 timeline?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go around and let the directors chime in. Okay. Denise?
So on the clubs that have postponed because of COVID, then when they get a date, they need to say, okay, we're going to continue our postponement from, say they announce it today, basically June 4th, and they're going to say, we want to have it on July the 10th. So that is outside of the 30 days, so that would be fine, I think, as far as what Ray just indicated. And if they can do that, that's fine. They should have all the paperwork already done if it's a postponement. I know on our club we sent it all in, and then we decided to postpone it. So they have all the paperwork in, and they could be excuse me, checking the flyer for information right now. You may have to change judges because of the time frame or something, but so I think the 30 days is good. But I do think that as soon as we can get back to the regular 60-day plan, that we should say, okay, as of since it's now becoming a question, why don't we just say as of June the 15th, everything is 60 days unless it is a COVID thing in that 30 days. So that's just sort of what I'm thinking. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Gina?
I agree with Denise. I think, like in the case of the NorCal, they hadn't sent in the sanctioning because they were already aware that they were not going to be able to have the show because the fairgrounds wouldn't let them. So I think the 30 days should only apply to clubs that have a show weekend that is theirs through history of the show, and that they had to move it. Any new shows should not be allowed the 30 days. And as things start to open up, I think we will see a deadline on this pretty soon where we can go back to the 60 days. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. John?
Well, we're still closed. So most of the club events in my state are being canceled rapidly. And I know they want to come forward. Some haven't sanctioned because they weren't sure. If we need the 30 days, that's good, but we need to make sure that when the clubs can actually have these trials and things are safe, that they can sanction events and get notification. The 30 days is a good guideline, and hopefully that's going to work. And close it off once most of the states look like they're up and running would be the time frame I would say that you would change that. I'd also wonder if in some cases the committees could be helping in some way to make things go faster, but or even if you have to send the flyer back twice, we're not going to be able to do it. And let the clubs know. You need to get everything right the first time so that it can go forward in this tight window. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. Jean?
I agree with Ray on the 30 days for sure. This just opens up a whole can of worms, because when you tell people, okay, well, your flyer has to be correct. So this, number one, the 30 days, it would almost be impossible to do anything that needed a course review. in my opinion. I mean, or like a farmer ranch trial, 30-day sanctioning just wouldn't be enough so we have to be careful with, unless it's a postponement and they'd already had their courses approved, of course. But, you know, we get into that gray area where we go, well, if their flyer isn't correct and they're just 2 times, and then we're just going to say, no, you guys have to wait the 60 days. I think we're going to have to be a little more clear in our expectations. And I know it's going to put a little more of a burden on the people in the office, because instead of doing their mail by date that it came in, they're going to really need to sort through them and make sure that they're processing the soonest show first. You know, I'm kind of in a state like Jan where things are really not going on. But, you know, in other states, things are going on. So, I feel like the new shows should have to be 60 days, but I think that would cause some sort of burden on new shows in a place like Washington that hasn't even been able to work to open up. So I'm not quite sure exactly how we do this and make it efficient and fair for everyone. And that's all I got for you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Judy?
Okay, one of the sad things about this is, had we, my club, known that we needed to sanction a trial in order to get upgraded sanctioning, so to speak, we would have done it. But we knew we couldn't have a trial, so we didn't sanction it. So now we're stuck with the 90 days. So, or sorry, 60 days. As far as course review, for agility, judges only have to send their courses in 30 days ahead. So that's not really a problem for us. I can understand with farm review, it might be. The other thing is, I really think if we had a flyer, a premium that was simply fillable, and it's the same for every single program. This is what you need on the front of it, so that the office can check it instantly. People, when they're filling it out, they know exactly what they need to have and where it needs to be, because I've always hated that we don't have any kind of standardization, because you go to look at a premium list or a flyer and you can't find, you know, where it's at or what dates or what they're having. But I really think if we standardize that, it would make it much easier for the office to simply check it off when you send in sanctioning. Yep, everything's here. That's meant to be, and then after that, they can do it. So I understand, you know, while I'm not particularly happy with it because it affects our club show, I understand that we need some kind of time frame, and I think 30 days for those who have already sanctioned trials and are moving them is reasonable. Otherwise, we're putting it off till now. We're not going to have any shows basically until the fall if we simply tell everyone this is all you can do. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Rachel?
Well, it's a difficult situation for everyone. And the business office, of course, must have time to process and be able to put it out on the calendar in order for folks to know about it, to be able to come to the shows. Or else we're setting up the scenario, as Ray suggested, that everyone and their friends are the ones that come to the show. So that's one issue. And the other one, I think it depends upon the venue, whether it can be done in 30 days. For example, on the farm and ranch trial sanctioning, unless the stock dog committee agrees to doing it in 30 days, I do not see that as being realistic. So I think that this also is affected by whatever venue is asking for sanctioning. I think 30 days, as Ray suggested, is very reasonable. And at the same time, we really don't want to exclude people, but we must have a workable environment. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Rick?
I kind of agree with everybody else. I think Ray has given us 30-day time frame to be acceptable for the office, especially during these times. I really think we need to come up with a date for the next 30 days. You have 30 days, or then maybe progress it to 45 days the next month. And then the third month, you have 60 days and it's back to where we had it. Maybe we could do a progression or something, but I think we need to let everybody know these are the dates, this is how much time you have, and move forward. We can't just I don't think it's in our best interest to do a case-by-case evaluation of this, because it's not fair to everybody. So we need to be consistent and come up with some hard, fast dates, and let's stick with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Warren?
Hi. Yes, I'm just making a little note here. Hang on. I don't actually know anyone in the business office, but I have worked with them a number of times. I have a great deal of faith in the business office. I know they've helped us in cases when we've had trouble with our premium, and I know they've moved things through very quickly when everything's been clean. I love the idea of a standard format. Wouldn't that be really cool for everybody? But that's not what we're talking about here. So interesting, Jan was mentioning that Washington's closed. Well, in Maine, we still have a quarantine. Our borders are shut. Nobody can come in. We're going to get important information on June 23rd. Our trial is scheduled for July 15th. Sure, we can sanction it ahead of time and meet a 30-day deadline. That just means a waste of money to us. I'm not sure whether a little club like ours can do that. I don't know why we should have to do that. If indeed our paperwork is the kind that can move quickly. I do think that this is a very special time. I don't think saying 30 days for everybody, based on what Ray was saying, that some clubs are going to abuse this, sounds like Ray knows what's going on. I think case by case might have a lot more sense than a deadline that we know is going to be abused by the abusers and will not help folks like me who just want to have, summer in Maine is really short. We have a few weeks to do it. We've got the deadline. We've got it lined up. We could do it if they open the state. We won't know in time if we go with a 30-day deadline. Disappointing for me, but I think also we're not the only state with arbitrary deadlines that are going to change over time. Allowing for some flexibility, I would love to see us say that we have a 60-day deadline for sanctioning. And for clubs that are in trouble in trying to work things out, contact the business office and we'll try to accommodate. Rachel's absolutely right. 30 days on a farm trial, we've already decided that's crazy. Even if we took a course that we had used in the past and had been sanctioned in the past, the probability that the new reviewer will not find something wrong with it it's absurd. It never happens. So we can't have a farm trial. That's fine. But I think being flexible, admitting that we don't have all the answers, I think we really, so now I'll speak instead of as the member from Maine who wants a trial, I'm going to speak as the treasurer. We need to sanction every fucking trial that we can. I mean, we need this money badly. So arbitrary isn't going to help anybody. We need to be the flexible group when, someone asks, hey, are we competitive with AHBA? Whatever. Are we the ones you want to work with? Sure we are. Because Ray and his team, I know for a fact, are flexible, will work with us. They're going to bend over backwards. They do it all the time, even when we have 60 days. Let's make the statement that we want to work with you. We want to do your trial, but there may come a time, whether it's 48 days out, whether it's 21 days out, you don't get your paperwork together, the office is crammed, sorry, you're out. And that's a decision that's going to be made by the business office.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Okay, so you're saying that we should, so let me see if I understand. And of course, before I continue, a reminder that this is being recorded.
I'll say it again for the record. We need every fucking penny we can get.
I understand, Warren.
Now, that aside, what I'm trying to say is that we have a 60-day deadline. That's in our rules. That's what we follow. We're in a very special time frame. It's an open-ended time frame. I don't want to say this COVID's going to be over in 30 days. We're in a special time frame, and we are going to be as accommodative as possible. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. So you're thinking that then the decision should be on the office?
I would love it. Now, I would be very willing to hear Ray's opinion. Maybe he doesn't want that responsibility, and I understand that. But it sounded to me like he knows how it works. He knows what's going on. And just from the few words he said, I got a lot of faith in his ability to make that decision.
Okay. Yeah. I'm
Liz,
gonna.
can I ask a question?
Yes. I'm sorry. What?
Can I ask a question quickly here?
Is this
This is
Denise?
Denise.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Sure. Go ahead.
So Warren, in your case and in Jan's case where the states are closed, could you not apply for a date right now and get your sanctioning in and get it? And even if you know that date is closed, at least the paperwork would be in. The office could get it approved. Your ranch trial, courses could be approved, so that when you get a date, you could call the office and say, we now have a date that is open, so we apply our sanctioning to this specific date. And that way the paperwork is already completed and it's just waiting for a date to apply.
I love that idea. And then in the case of the fees, we'd pay the fees up front, but be able to apply them to whichever date we chose.
Yeah.
That gives tremendous flexibility. That sounds like a wonderful idea.
But Warren,
and that's what we've been doing.
Yes, that's the current arrangement. That's what the office has been doing since, I don't know, April 1st or whatever it was. So if a club has sanctioned any show and then they get closed down by the state and they have to cancel, they could just tell the office, it's up to them. They could just tell the office, we just got canceled, so hold on to that sanctioning and we're going to let you know if we have another date. Or they can say, okay, we cancel until next year, that show is out. And so they get a refund for their sanctioning. So they have the choice of doing either one. So what's happening is that some are actually coming with the new date a little bit too close. Okay, so they're telling the office 2 weeks, ahead or something. Hey, we just found out we can do, this show 2 weeks from now. And sometimes they have it already sanctioned and sometimes not. So if it's already sanctioned, or like Denise said, all the paperwork is done, so it would be easier for the office to handle it. But if they didn't sanction that, then it becomes a bigger problem for the office. And yes, 30 days is certainly not enough for farm trials. I would doubt it very much.
So Liz, in that case where someone, and that's not our case at all. We're very slow moving, but someone in an area where they could just out of the ordinary say, wow, we could have a trial in 10 days. There's a tremendous opportunity for us. We've got 38 dogs that want to enter. This is great. If we could sanction that, why wouldn't we?
It's not that we can't.
So why don't we make the statement? If you can pull a trial together, we want your fees.
I know that sounds great, Warren, but
yeah. Let's say it. Yeah. If it sounds great, let's all say it.
Yeah, but it causes problems for the office. So let's allow Ray to say whatever he thinks.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, what was just discussed is what we've been doing. Like I said, we have been bending over backwards trying to help these affiliate clubs out in any which way, form, shape, and manner we can. Because we understand everything is up in the air. This is unprecedented. 1918 was the last time something like this happened. Get it. If they get their paperwork in and they have to postpone, reschedule, we're working with them. You want a refund, you want a credit back, you want us just to hold on to it and see what happens for the next month. Not a problem. Some clubs, they have one show a year. That's the only time that they can get a facility, and they came back to us and said, Ray, there's no other facility that we'll be able to have for the rest of the year. Okay, I'll issue you a refund, not a problem. And you don't know how many clubs have come to me and said, Ray, we're not going to be able to hold a show this year. Will we be able to renew our club next year because it's required to have an event? I said, absolutely. We understand this is going to be a strange year as far as that goes. You don't have to worry about that. We don't want to see these clubs fail. Trust me. But at the same time, there becomes a point from someone trying to reschedule an event and clubs just trying to take advantage of the situation. I have no problem saying, okay, yes, we can make this one go, we can make that one not go. But I know as soon as I do that, someone's going to scream, well, that's unfair because so-and-so got theirs sanctioned and I'm going to the board.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it happens.
Right.
Already has.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, it will. That's why I wanted to make clear, for you know, from what Warren said, if the board allows the office to just make that decision, then we have to say as a board, Ray makes that decision in the business office, and the board is out of it. Because otherwise, we're just going to have this situation going to the board, and then, you know, if we're going to be saying to Ray, we don't agree with that. We don't agree with your decision. So then why give him the leeway in the first place? I mean, we can't be doing that. He's the only one who can do it consistently.
Liz, if I could, I'm not suggesting we give him the leeway and then override it. I'm saying we give him the authority. You know, so when that club from California came in and said, Ray told us no, help, that's not an answer. If we're going to go down the road of saying the business office knows what to do, then we're done with it. And you know, I think something we as a board, I think really do need to give more authority and to spend time on this, perhaps other duties. So I am 100% in favor. If Ray says yes or no, I mean, I'd like to get to know him a little better, but I have a lot of faith in him right now. I'll back him up 100%.
Liz,
Yeah,
can I say something?
Go ahead, Gina.
There's a difference between moving a show to a new date and requesting sanctioning and creating a new show. I think like part of the problem was that, like with the NorCal that came to the board, they never sent the sanctioning in because they didn't realize that they had to, in order to get the sanctioning, you know, the 30-day rule. I would say if a club is sending in their sanctioning and it's because that they are moving the date because of COVID from an original show or an original date, they just need to tell Ray that. And any new shows that didn't have a previous, you know, show date, would the 60 days would apply to. That's all I have.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that's, I am exactly opposed to that. It is the new shows that bring in the money that we've lost. If AKC is in wherever, Hato Bar out in Ohio, they cancel a show, all of a sudden we got a facility, we've got dogs, we've got stock. If we can sanction that in a week and nobody else can, that's money we get and nobody else does. So I understand the idea of taking advantage of the situation, and that's why I really like the idea of somebody who understands what's going on, not board decisions, not making it political, just someone saying, okay, look, here's an opportunity, let's take it. And if we can allow affiliates to look at us and say, wow, these are the guys that helped us out, we're going to buy goodwill instead of driving people away and saying, well, there's just a lot of paperwork.
Okay,
This is Jean.
Go ahead, Jean.
Warren, one of my favorite sayings when I was working, because I was in sort of a regulatory thing, was don't say no just because you can, because I don't think that's a win for anybody. But on the other hand, I think that, and I think, so for what it's worth, having things not well defined puts the staff in the office in a bad position, because let's say one program is able to get the sanctioning done on something in 2 weeks, but the other one isn't. The member on the other end of the line, really, all they know is that their friend got theirs done in 2 weeks and they don't understand why they can't. So, but I also get that, if there's a facility available and somebody can put it together and everything's right, then we should try to say yes. But Ray alluded to something that has happened. And, people are going to do what they're going to do, where there would be shows or trials and it was purposely not sanctioned until the very last minute, and the flyer's not very available because they want the people they want to get in. And people are going to do that anyway. But I think that's also one of the concerns I heard come from Ray, was that these folks that are putting on a show are basically doing it for themselves and their friends, which, I get it. We've all been locked up, so we do want to go have fun with our dogs. I get it. But our solution was that we were going to be flexible with sanctioning fees. We would refund. We would hold them. We would allow you to change. So somebody like my club used to sanction all of our shows in January, even if we didn't have all of our judges yet. But we had the dates, we had everything. And so there's nothing, and maybe as a board, we need to put something out again saying, hey, if you guys think where you're at, you're going to be able to hold a show in July, go ahead and sanction it now and get all your ducks in a row. And if it turns out that you can't, we'll be happy to work with you. We'll either refund your money or we'll hold it for another date. And, and that helps the office too, because they're not putting somebody's last minute request in front of other people who submitted their stuff in a timely manner, I guess would be, or results. So, anyhow, that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
I agree 100%.
Thanks, Jean. So what we could do, and I guess let's see if Ray agrees. What we could do is send out another statement or whatever, saying that, asking the clubs that if they think that like if they have shows or whatever, or they're planning shows, to go ahead and sanction them. And then if they need to change whatever dates, to go ahead and do that. And that the office will work with them until further notice, because I don't want to, on the one hand, I don't want to put a date, because we don't know when this is going to be over. And then we'll have to go ahead and get together again and change the date. So if we say until further notice, that kind of like gives us leeway to say, hey, next month is over, or it can give us leeway to just let it go, as long as we need to. So put this statement out, as Jean said, that we're asking you, the clubs, to sanction their shows, that the office will work with them or whatever. We can do that. My question is, though, we're going to have more problems like the one we just had. So what is going to be our what are we going to do about it? Are we going to allow Ray to make those calls? Or if we are, then we're going to tell the membership, Ray is going to be the one making that decision. Don't come to the board. Just put and if the office is able to accommodate you, then great. If not, do something to change the date or whatever you need to do. I mean, that's where I'm at.
Liz, this is Judy.
Go ahead, Judy.
Um, I agree we need to put something out, but I think we need to clearly define, are we talking about only shows that had previous sanctioning, or are we talking about any shows? Because right now we could not sanction any show in July. It's already well past the 60 days. And Ray is saying that if you're not moving a show because of COVID, then it's got to be the 60-day period. So we need to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. Does this apply only to shows that are rescheduled or to all shows? And then also encourage everyone to go ahead and sanction. Right now, we would not even try to sanction a show in July, even though we had thought about it. But now we're well past the 60 days, so we can't. So we have to decide, does this apply to every show out there? That if the office feels they can get it done, then put your sanctioning in. Or is this only the office will work with you if you had a show sanction? Because a lot of us didn't do that because we didn't think we could have a show. If we would have known that we would only get expedited sanctioning if we had already sanctioned, we might have done it differently. So I think we need to make it clear to clubs what we're talking about.
Thanks, Judy. Absolutely. To me, if we're going to say, you know, we're going to be completely flexible and we're going to help you, and we're going to say as Warren said, you know, we need the money, and we know the affiliates are needing the money. So how flexible can we be? Then I would say that if the office can handle 30 days, then I would say 30 days for all until further notice. But 30 days is not going to be enough for some of the programs. I mean, like the farm trial is probably going to be, we will have to talk to the SDC about that, because there's no way that the farm trials can be done with 30 days. So I think, again, to me, what it comes down to is what Ray thinks that the office can do, you know, practically, in practical terms. So if Ray thinks that we can handle 30 days of most shows and trials, regardless of whether they were sanctioned or not, then I will say, sure, let's do that until further notice. But to me, I think I will go back to what Ray thinks that the office can do.
Liz, this is Rachel.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that we need to defer this to Ray. Ray is the business office manager. He knows what his staff can handle. He knows the situation that ASCA is currently in. He knows the situation that affiliates are in. Ray is not politically biased one way or the other. He and that staff do an outstanding job. I think that we just let him, like Warren said, do his job and send out the notice to the affiliates and stating it. And I'm sure that Calla, in her infinite ability to wordsmith, can put something together for affiliates to help them understand that and leave the decision to Ray. The board doesn't need to be in this. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so I guess we need to decide whether that's the way that we're gonna go, and whether we're gonna just defer to Ray, and then we can go ahead and send the affiliates a notice, or what else. Okay, so I guess I don't know if this would need a motion or not. I'm kind of thinking that it would not, but if somebody thinks that it's a motion, better speak now.
Unfortunately, I don't think you can make a motion currently, because once again,
Yeah.
for the ranch and farm trials, we've got to get with the stock dog committee to see what they're comfortable with. With
Right.
rally,
Right.
judges are supposed to have their courses turned in 30 days if they're on pretrial review. So we need to get with that committee. Judy's already
Okay.
kind of talked about the agility committee and that side of things shouldn't be that big of a deal. Obedience and
Okay.
confirmation are fairly easy to move forward with
Sure.
on everything, and then the normal stock arena trials are fairly easy to move forward with.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and send a notice to the committees that we think will have some issues, you know, with, you know, the programs that are going to have issues with putting it through 30 days and see what they say, and then go ahead and talk about it, about this again next week. And then we already know what Ray thinks. And so then we can, you know, if we need to do a motion, then we can do it then. Is that agreeable to everyone?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, it works for me.
It's good
Mrs.
for me.
Rachel works for me, as long as Ray can go ahead and do what he needs to do between now and then. I don't want to impede any progress on any shows.
Yeah.
And
So
the only
what has happened? What has happened with that NorCal show?
It went through. You
Y'all
guys
said to
said that you
sanction it.
wanted to go through. So, yeah.
It's
I want to
sanctioned up
sanction
online
everything,
and
so.
paperwork went out.
Yep.
I would, for the record, and Liz, I don't want to wordsmith, but you said we defer to Ray. What I want to say is we support Ray's decisions, and I'm not sure if that's really different or not, but that's really how I feel. That we're, you know, Ray has the authority to do what he thinks is best, and he needs to know that the board's 100% behind him.
Yeah, well, I agree. Like I said, I'm with whatever, you know, whatever Ray thinks that the office can do, then we can move forward with that. So, you know, that's the way I feel. So anyway, if we think, then let's talk to the committees that we need to talk to, and then we'll revisit this, and then we'll keep the communication open between us and Ray, and we'll move forward with that. And hopefully between now and the next meeting, which is next week, yeah, then we won't have any issues or problems. So, all right. So,
Are you wanting me to reach out to those committees, Liz, or are you wanting the liaisons to
no,
reach
the
out to them?
liaisons should do it. Yeah, the liaisons should do it. Yeah. Okay, so let's move forward, because otherwise we're going to be here all night. So, so that's the plan for that item. So for the next item is, you know, any update, right?
Right before all of this happened, Gessner was finishing out the plat and rezoning paperwork, and the week before had sent it over to the city of Bryan, and since then they have been on hiatus as far as having their zoning and planning meetings and everything, so that's on hold until they come back together and start doing the zoning and planning meetings.
Okay. Anybody has any questions from Ray on this item? Okay. I guess we move forward. So, lost my agenda again. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so the other is the process for farm ranch trial sanction, and I'm not really sure why we have this here. I'm assuming it's because of the time frame. I mean, the length of time that it takes to do farm trials and ranch trials. And I know that we had a little hiccup with one trial before all of this COVID-19 thing happened. So anything you want to say about that, Ray?
I mean, the process is clubs get the flyer sanctioning paperwork and judges diagram or judges sheets that they make up for each one of the sanctioned events and stock associated with that to the office. That gets sent over to the stock dog committee that disseminates it to the reviewers. They've got a certain amount of time frame to get back to us with the approval on it. If they have any questions, they typically reach out directly to the course director to iron out any issues that they might see within those courses, since it can vary across the country and from farm and ranch to farm and ranch. And then once that gets turned back into us as far as the approval from the stock dog committee on the courses, then we move forward with the sanctioning and everything of the trial. The situation that has come up with that is most clubs present a flyer to the office with the farm trial and the arena trial for the weekend's information on it. Well, we can move forward with the arena trial, not a problem. But until that farm trial gets approved, we are not putting a flyer out onto the website stating that there's a farm trial, because things can happen. The club might figure out that it's more of a hassle than what it's worth and everything like that. So what we have started suggesting to clubs is send us 2 separate flyers. One for your arena trials, one for your farm trials. We'll move forward, get the arena trials up on the website and out there for everybody to view or whatnot. As soon as we get that approval for the farm trial, then we'll do the same for that. And that seems to have alleviated some of the angst from clubs, because they're like, well, why isn't our arena trial up, Ray? Well, the second part of your flyer isn't sanctioned yet, and we can't move forward with it. So that seems to have helped alleviate some of that angst, like I said.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Any questions to Ray from the directors on this issue? Okay, doesn't look like it. So I think that maybe I put something about it in one of my messages. I don't remember when it was, but maybe what we could do is, send another reminder that the best thing to do is to put the farm or ranch trials separate from, the premium for those separate from the premium for other arena trials or whatever other events they have. So we can do that. Okay. So if there are no questions, I'm going to go forward to the next item. Okay, the paper issue. I think that we have talked about this. We talked about it last nationals. A lot of people complain about the quality of the paper on the certificates. So, and I think that we had asked Ray to look up and research the papers and so forth. So I'll let Ray take it over from here.
It's all going to be dependent on what we want representing ASCA as far as certificate paper. That shiny metallic thing stands out from just regular general cardstock that we use for rule book covers and membership cards and QT numbers and registration certificates and everything like that. So I believe that's the reason why that was originally chose. There's a full gamut of other stuff out there that we can look at. Obviously, price is going to be a factor associated with some of the stuff. The paper that we were originally using has been completely discontinued. I was able to find another substitute that is fairly close to it after that last paper type went completely by. So I just need, if the board is wanting us to change paper types, I need an idea of what y'all are wanting to move forward with to represent ASCA, and I can get quotes and samples and anything else that y'all want on anything like that. are y'all wanting to go completely away from the shiny stuff and go to something that's a little more flat and plain and dull, or what are y'all wanting to represent ASCA?
Jan, are you gonna, or Liz, are you gonna go around?
Yes, I was just gonna say that I'm just gonna
Okay,
go around,
all right.
so to allow each director to say what they think about, you know, where we could go with the paper. So Denise.
So, excuse me. I think that the certificates that I've received, one of the nicest ones that I like is that it's kind of it's a light blue and it's a shiny finish, and I think that's a beautiful piece of paper. I would say that the thickness of the paper is probably important. Certainly a little heavier cardstock maybe, but and some of them are just, I just think the thickness, I think it needs to be like a cardstock piece of paper, and go from there. I think that a shiny finish looks nice to me. It's a little bit more festive looking or whatever, special, rather than a just piece of paper. But I believe that cardstock thickness is, and I don't know how you talk about what that, but you know, something even like a business card, you know, would be nice, rather than a piece of actual paper that's very flexible. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Denise. Gina?
I don't really, without actually seeing the different types of papers, it's kind of hard to make a decision. I do think, I agree that it maybe should be a little bit heavier. I don't know what people do with their certificates and stuff. I just put mine in a folder, but I know they're important to a lot of people and you spend a lot of money getting them. So whatever it is, it should be very classy. But I'm pretty good with whatever everybody else decides. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Jan?
I think the glossy in the title looks good and is uniform throughout all the things. I thought it had to do with the Hall of Fame or performance champions, that's a flat. Is that right, Ray? It's more of a flat. Is there a way to make that on the shinier cardstock and larger?
We use the same certificate paper for the PCH, VCH specialties as what we use for the normal titles. And unfortunately, as of right now, we can't change the size of any of the titles because that's auto-generated with ADMS.
But then how about the Hall of Fames and Sire Dam? That's just a regular cardstock
Word document
with
that's a heavier cardstock, yes.
And my memory was it had to do with those, if we could do a nicer quality paper on those products. And with the computer limitations, that would be the only change I would be interested in, is those are big recognitions that they're on a little higher quality paper that looks maybe more like the certificate, but different. And I don't know what's out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Jean?
Yeah, it was my understanding, besides the Hall of Fame, that some members wanted 8x10 title certificates like AKC puts out. And I realized that ours are programmed into our system, so we can't change that right now. But I would be with Jan on the Hall of Fame stuff, if maybe we could get a little bit nicer paper. I know that shiny paper is kind of a pain because the ink doesn't dry right away. You have to let it sit. So, and then you just said, Ray, that paper has been like discontinued. Is that what I heard?
Yes, it was discontinued. I was able to go through our printer, who has other paper sources, obviously, and
right.
We were able to find something that is very similar as far as thickness and color and gloss, and I mean we've been using it for 4 months or so, and order it in a big sheet and just cut it down, have it cut down with our printer actually, and it's ended up being cheaper than what it was with the previous paper.
That's good.
Yeah. The one thing that everybody loves, the metallic glossy aspect, and one thing that I'm hearing from y'all is saying thicker paper. The only issue that I've run into with that, because I did try some that was a little bit thicker,
our printers,
because of that gloss, depending on the paper feed, whenever the ladies in the office are printing them, that gloss doesn't get picked up by the rollers on printers very well. So if you end up going thicker, then you can't feed it in a normal way from most printers. You have to have a printer with a thick front straight feed or a back straight feed or whatnot. And even then, the rollers are moving fast enough to do a burnout basically on the paper, and then it misfeeds type of thing. So because of the thickness on there.
Yeah. I agree with Jan. I think if we could get maybe a nicer paper for the Hall of Fame, and I know that we can't do anything about the higher performance titles, but maybe at some point we'll be able to change the size of those canned reports for the certificate so that we can do something about that. But until then, I think the paper's fine. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Judy?
I like our certificates personally. I don't want to see them changed. What I have heard from people is they want an 8x10 certificate for any championship. So breed or agility or stock or any kind of championship. They think it should be a bigger one than a simple title certificate. So until we can get that changed, in the meantime, if we can do a bigger Hall of Fame, or nicer Hall of Fame, I should say, that's fine. But I don't really have a problem with what I've gotten so far. So I'm pretty good with it the way it is. Thanks.
Thanks, Judy. Rachel?
Yeah, as I recall, it was the special titles, the SVCH and the PCHs and whatever in the Hall of Fame. So Ray knows what the members have said, and I'm going to leave it up to him to determine what he can do paper-wise to make them look better. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Rick?
Yeah, unfortunately, some of those we can't change right now, but the ones we can, we probably need to use a little bit better quality stock. Maybe Ray could get us an option of maybe 3 different stocks that we could choose from and go that way. From what I hear him saying, he doesn't really know what we want, so it's hard for him to go out and get something, and if he does, then it's wrong. So maybe he could get the board some options, 3 or 4 options of different paper. We could all look at it and decide as a board which way we want to move forward with it. That's just my idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Warren?
I think that's a great idea by Rick, and I will say that the titles, I like what Gina had said. We put a lot of money into it. We want something that looks classy. I think that's probably true for all the members. I don't actually know. There are some members who have a lot of titles, and maybe it's not quite as important. I wonder. I've heard what you said about the system requires the standard size in printing, and that's what we've had for a while. It's kind of trademark ASCA. I love that, but something for people who want more. Do we want to try to sell them something? I'm always up for new ways to make money, and I know there are titles I've gotten in the past where you can you get the sort of the small one, but then if you pay extra, you can have parchment paper and so on, and of course they make money off it. But that's just a thought. I'm very comfortable what Rick said about having people check it out. I don't think, at least for me, I don't need to be one of the people that touches the paper to feel it. I think a subset could do that very effectively, and I agree that as I said, I love Gina's. I want it to be classy.
Thank you, Warren. So yes, I agree that it needs to be classy, and one of the reasons why I do that, it's not just because the members, of course, will like our title certificates to be nice. It's also because I try to fight always this idea that some people have that ASCA is behind the times, that ASCA is not, as classy, let's say, as some other registries or whatever. And so I think I would like us to go forward with something that looks better. And of course, we have limitations right now, so we can't change the size for the titles. But I think that, when we can, we should look into it. And I agree with Rick in that maybe we could have Ray let us know, just from the experience in the office, what works and what doesn't work, and give us some options, and maybe we can go forward from there. So that's where I'm at with that. So Ray, anything else on this?
Okay. I'll get some samples pulled together and get them mailed out to everybody.
All right. Right.
Liz, this is Jan.
Go ahead.
Is there a possibility that we could have a different color, or put on an extra decal, or do something a little special for Champions Witch, Ratch, Atch, those higher level awards? Maybe some thought into that, Ray, if there's a different color, different look, same size, that might make a difference, so that when you're looking at them, hey, this is a big one.
Okay.
Just a thought. Thanks.
So whenever we enter a show into the system and we process the certificates associated with it, the big titles are right there next to the started titles. Two titles get printed per sheet of paper, so you might end up having a started cattle title at the top and a witch at the bottom.
But
okay, that doesn't work.
But they can be reprinted, because
yes,
we did used to put them on a different color at times.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a, like the only titles you're printing out in confirmation, they're all champions, right? That's the only title you print out. The other programs obviously have their progression titles, and then you'll have the, and I guess witches, there's more witches than there used to be and stuff like that. But as Gina pointed out, people pay a lot of money to get that championship, so it shouldn't hurt us to go ahead and stick a prettier piece of paper in there and reprint that title for whoever has gotten a championship. I think a little bit of effort that way would probably go a long way, since we can't change the size. I don't know. That's just a thought.
What about stickers or something like that? They have the gold, gold stars or whatever those things are called, that they put on some of the titles.
We put an ASCA seal on every title that's issued and mailed out.
Yeah, well, maybe it could be like just different ink, or just, I don't know. I agree that titles are important to everybody. I enjoy getting them, and I mean, I love my Hall of Fame one, because I think it's really totally ASCA, and the champion ones that are on the shiny paper are pretty. So as long as they're consistent with across the board the level of accomplishment that they are, whether they're a started duck dog and a open sheep and a advanced cattle, to me those are all the same level. But when they're a witch, then they get something extra special. So anyway, just my thought. Thanks.
Okay, I've got a couple ideas that I can pull together on that and get sent over to y'all.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I just want to say something, Ray. You don't need to mail me any paper. If you just give me some screenshots, some scans or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll be fine. So
this is Rachel. The same with me. Don't waste postage. Just send us screenshots.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we have the next item, which is okay, Callum.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
Welcome back to all the members who have been listening to the recording. We had to take a little pause because there were some items that belonged in executive session. So we paused the recording for that period of time, and now they're back. We're back. And the next item on open session is a discussion of refunds if they for nationals. If somebody enters nationals and then they have to withdraw their entries because of rules regarding communicable disease. And so this is something that came up a year and a half back or 2 years back. And so the board never decided whether we needed to do a refund policy. I guess I'm gonna go around and see what everybody thinks about this. Denise?
Well, I would say that if a dog has a communicable disease and they take it to the veterinarian and the veterinarian absolutely agrees and is willing to write a letter stating that this dog on this date is found to have a communicable disease and would not be well, far enough ahead of time, like within the 30 days or whatever before the nationals, then I would say, yes, stay home and we can reimburse that entry. We sure don't want them to come. And I think that there are people that bring dogs that have communicable diseases because they cannot get a refund. So they bring it hoping it'll be okay by the time it's there. So that's my take on it. I just think that, but it does need to be on like the vet's official stationery, maybe a copy of the bill, that the patient actually came in and is identified as this dog and this information. So it needs proper documentation is all that I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A reminder that some of the cases that we have seen have also been not that the dog was sick, but that they had been exposed to a dog who they later found was sick. So in that case, the dog that actually gets withdrawn, whose entry gets withdrawn from nationals, may not get sick, but may have been exposed, which is also against the rules to bring the dog into an event. So,
well, if that's the case,
just wanted you guys to remind you.
Just for exposure, it still would need that the dog that it was exposed to that had the disease, you would still need to have documentation that indeed that dog was had a communicable disease, and that so and so dog was exposed to it, and with the incubation period of this date, if it doesn't have it by this date, it's okay to go. But if it's within that date, then no. And so maybe that would still warrant a reimbursement. But there again, I think documentation of each and every dog involved needs to be fulfilled by a a licensed veterinarian.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Denise. Gina?
I agree with Denise 100%, and especially on the documentation. We definitely don't want people coming to nationals because they can't get a refund because they have a dog with communicable diseases. But we also don't want, or we want to try to avoid having people abuse the refund policy also. So I agree, definitely documentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Jan? Jan?
Are you calling on me? This is Jan.
Yes, I am.
Okay. As I said in my earlier email, I always look at premiums to see how they state that. And I think that's a good policy. And I believe that a vet would write a notice if there was known cases of dogs. So with written confirmation for human and dog issues, I think we should allow refunds. Thank you.
Okay. Jean?
Yeah, I think if they have the documentation, I don't know that it's practical to get documentation on exposure, because maybe you don't know those other people whose dog got kennel cough, or maybe you do, whatever. Yeah, I think that we want to encourage people to do the right thing, and I think offering refunds is the right way to do that. So that's what I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Judy?
I agree with documentation of either sickness or exposure, they should get a refund.
Okay, thanks. Rachel?
I agree with what everyone else has said. No changes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. Rick?
I don't really have anything to add to it.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Warren?
And I think it's so interesting thinking about when you said communicable diseases. I didn't understand this was for dogs. I thought it was for people in the time we're living in. But now that I understand, I do agree. We want to give people a refund if their dog has a documented illness. I have no question about that.
Okay, so, all right. So, yeah, I certainly agree that documentation is needed and that refunds should be allowed in that kind of situation. Now, there's only one more year where nationals is going to be done by clubs, and after that, ASCA is taking over. So there will be not much of an issue for ASCA to say, yes, we are going to refund. But the question is, while nationals is being done by a consortium or a club or whatever, what has happened in the past is that the withdrawal of the entry came after the deadline that it says in the premium, and so some of the clubs were not willing to give the refund back, and so ASCA had to go ahead and say, well, okay, we're going to take the responsibility and we're going to do it. Okay, so I think that if we are going to make a refund policy, that it also is, it's viable for this year where clubs are the ones doing it, then we have to make clear, and this, of course, will have to be made with a motion. I think that it has to, it can't be without a motion. That the clubs would have to give the refund, or are we going to say ASCA you know, whether if the club does not feel that they should, then it would ASCA be doing it? That's another question. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not only whether ASCA thinks that we should be giving a refund, it's what are we going to do when, you know, is this going to apply also to the clubs, is what I'm saying. And so if the answer is yes, then whenever we make a motion about this, it's going to have to include that.
Like you said, Liz, this is the last year. So
yep.
do we want to make a motion for this year and then just take that motion away, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm asking. I mean, it has to be addressed in some way or another.
And in the past, from what I understand, we haven't had just an overabundance of people asking for refunds.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was just one.
Go ahead, Kala.
I'm sorry, this is Kala. I'm pretty sure there was just that one from 2018 Nationals.
Yeah.
This is Rachel, guys. So what about pre-shows that are attached to Nationals? That's still going to be hosted by affiliates.
Well, that's I believe that's part of what happened, right? It was different events that the dog was enter into that they had to cancel because they weren't, you know, they weren't sure what, you know, that the dog was going to be okay. And so you know, that's the issue. I mean, if we want to say ASCA will always take care of the refund, we can do that. And so that would, you know, would be okay for this year and any other year. But if we want to make clubs responsible for the refund, then that would be another story. That's what I'm saying. We have to be clear of what we want to do.
I believe that if a club takes an entry, and if that person has a document, a signed veterinarian, that their dog was exposed, kind of like the last one, even after the closing date, that affiliate should provide a refund to that contestant.
Right. If they take the entry money, they need to refund it with documentation.
That's right. ASCA doesn't own that.
Okay. Well, I'm just, we need to add something in the communicable disease rule about refunds, is if that's what we want to do. And so that would have to be made with a motion. I don't know if we want to like write a motion, you know, calmly this week and then, you know, send it over. Well, we have 6 days before we have to send it to CALA for the voting cycle. But that's the only, I mean, it will have to be added to the communicable disease rule. So is that, do we want to do that? We want to like work on it. Somebody would like to work on it and write it out and then get a second and send it for the voting cycle. I know that I wrote a lot of the rule, but I don't want to do this too. So is there a volunteer that would like to write something up? No volunteers. Okay.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it. This is Jan.
All right, if somebody volunteers, this is Rachel, I'll help. The ducks are about to kill me, okay?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But I will help if somebody else.
Second it.
Okay.
I would second it. This is Denise.
All right,
Okay,
we'll send it to you then after Jen
okay.
takes a look at it. Me too.
Well, okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Good. Okay, so we have that item taken care of. So we'll work on that. And then, so the last item in the agenda for today is the issue of the small business loan that is available to us through the COVID-19 Act. And we have been told that we're eligible. And so the question is, do we want to go forward and take a loan to help us get through this year, or not? And then if we want to go forward, what is the amount of the loan that we would like to take, since we have up to 150K? All right. So I'm going to go around and see what you guys think. Denise?
Start with Lauren.
Warren, please.
Okay, Warren. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Warren.
So there was someone wrote in earlier and said, yeah, well, we can always pay back early. And if that's true, that makes the analysis very, very simple, because we just pay back when we decide we don't like it. So we'll need to confirm that. We need to confirm that the 275 it's a no-brainer. We should borrow as much as we can for as long as we can. When we consider that we have investments to offset that, it's arbitrage, meaning we make more on our investments than we pay on our loan. So it's, to me, from the outside, from the small bits of information we have so far, borrow as much as we can for as long as we can. I know the next board that comes in, and we at 275 for 150, we'll pay about 75K in interest. And at some point, someone will say, well, wait a second, what were they thinking? Well, we're thinking that 275 is really low. It's abnormally low, and we should take advantage of it. So, if we can go further, Liz, and get information as to closing costs, to get information about penalties of prepayment, to get information about, do they require insurance and so on, at 275 for 30 years, unqualified, my suggestion is we go for it.
Okay, so I know that at least we have to have $25,000 in collateral. And we do have that, right?
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, so I know that we at least have that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna, I can try to get that answer, or maybe we could talk to the Chase Bank, or maybe they know if the government is planning to have any penalties in case of, paying off early.
I think actually, Liz, if they've told you it's Chase, I think we actually work directly with Chase, and it would be Chase that would be setting the terms.
No, they didn't say that. What I'm saying is, no, they didn't say that at all. The information, what I got is what I showed you. That's directly from the government.
Right. That's all we got. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I can get through to ask any questions. You know what I mean? I can try, but I'm not sure. So the thing is, if we can't, I think probably we won't know until we actually get sent the paperwork. And so to get sent that paperwork, I have to tell them, we want the 150K. And we know what the terms are already. It will be 30 years for 2.75%.
Yep.
And the payments come to something like $600 and some a month. And we will start paying 12 months after the closing of the loan.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah,
that's all just,
it's not bad at all.
That's all such, it's such good news. There's no reason why we wouldn't do it. So even if they say, no, you can't pay it back early, I think we still want to do it. But moving forward, to me, Liz, getting the paperwork, starting to fill it out, I don't think there's any question. The only number to borrow is the highest number. There's like 20,000 does nothing for us. The only answer is to borrow the maximum. Logically, the longest term, 30 years, makes sense, at least to me. That's the way the math runs out as far as I'm concerned. So that's what I recommend. If we think we're going to go for it, go for the highest amount for the longest rate.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Rick?
I agree with Warren. This is the cheapest money you'll ever get. This is just a kind of a weird time, and unfortunately, or fortunately, the government's trying to help us. So I definitely agree with Warren's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Rachel?
I think this is wonderful. You have deferred 12 months that you don't have to pay. So you're going to be using their money for a year, using their money before we have to start payback. Oh, the filing fee is listed as $100. You won't know about closing until you do the paperwork, I'm sure. And to think that we can use this money for whatever's needed, that allows us to reallocate other funds for possibly the new building fund or going back to the system upgrade and being able to start there. I am really excited about this, and I'm with Warren, man. Go for the max. This is a great deal for ASCA. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Judy?
Yeah, I agree. We might as well go for the total 150 because the other number that I was looking at is Warren had said we're losing about 40,000 a month for 3 months, so that would be 120,000. You might as well go for the 150. They are, according to the one paper that you sent, or that's on the OneDrive, we can't just use it for anything. But yes, in the meantime, while we're using that for payroll and everything else, then that, I don't know that that frees up other money. And personally, I think we should not be looking at a building right now. But that gives us a chance to make sure we have money to keep operating in the meantime.
That's exactly right, Judy. We can do this all through accounting. We don't need to set up separate banks or anything. In accounting, we have an account that shows the 150, and as we make payroll, we just essentially deduct from that, and it's all paperwork. We can handle it through debits and credits. There's no real money involved. So I think that's a-okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. We can talk about allocating it to other things, but in essence, no, we're going to allocate the money we would have spent on payroll and stuff. But I just think it's a nice hedge for right now, since we don't know what's going to happen. We might as well take the money.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Jean?
I 100% support what Warren said. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jan?
Ditto. Let's do it. I agree with Warren. Thanks.
Okay. Gina?
Ditto. I agree with everything that's been said.
Okay. Denise?
I'm in for it also. Sounds great to me.
Okay. So I guess what we need is a motion.
This is Warren, and I would like to move that we try to move forward with a loan through, I don't know exact terminology of where it's coming from, Liz, but the loan that's 150K for 30 years at 275.
I'll second it. Oh.
Well, I couldn't hear. I know Warren made the motion. Who seconded?
Jean did.
Jean. Did the motion include the amount? Okay. Jean or Gina?
Yeah.
Jean.
No, Jean.
Yes, the motion stated 150,000 at 275 for 30 years.
Okay. Very well. So we have a motion on the floor by Warren, seconded by Jean. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so I'll go ahead in the morning and put the next step in the process, and I will keep you all updated on what we get back. And so this was the last item for tonight. Thank you to all the directors and to David and Ray for their patience. And thank you to the membership for listening in. Good night.
Good night.
Liz?
Thank you.
Good night, Liz. Great job.
Good night.
Okay, hold on. Who's calling me? Somebody calling me?
It
I
was
think
Jean.